Ever found yourself standing outside a room, pretending to check your phone, and waiting for the right moment to walk in? Maybe it's a party, a work event, or just a casual social gathering. But instead of stepping in, you pause, like someone standing in front of a double Dutch jump rope, trying to time your entrance just right, but overthinking every step. Here's the thing, you're not alone. Social situations can feel unpredictable, like you're expected to perform instead of just be. But I have good news. Great conversationalists aren't born, they're made. So let's talk about how to walk into that room, feel comfortable, and actually enjoy social interactions, without feeling like you need to memorize a TED Talk beforehand. But why does socializing feel like such a thing? Well, your brain is wired for survival, not small talk. When faced with a group of people, your amygdala, aka your brain's danger detector, sometimes treats it like a life or death situation. What if I say something dumb? What if no one talks to me? What if I get stuck in an endless conversation about someone's pet iguana? Here's the reality. Most people are not judging you as harshly as you think. They're just as wrapped up in their own thoughts and social worries. That's why the best way to feel comfortable in social settings is not to focus on yourself. It's to focus on them. So you've walked in. Now what? Your brain might default to scanning the room for someone you know or heading straight for the snacks. Solid strategy, honestly. But the key to avoiding that awkward hovering is to initiate before your overthinking kicks in. Most people try to think their way into a conversation, but great conversationalists, they notice their way in. Instead of the standard, "So what do you do?" which can feel like an interview question, comment on something happening in the moment. For example, "That coffee looks dangerously strong. Are we talking stay up all night strong or just Monday morning strong? I think I've counted at least 4 people wearing the same blazer. Did I miss a dress code memo?" Observations make people feel seen without putting pressure on them to come up with an answer. It's just an easy way to start talking without forcing conversation. Now that the ice is broken, how do you keep things from stalling into awkward silence? Great conversations are like pulling on a thread. You start with one small detail, and before you know it, you're unraveling a whole story. Every response someone gives you is a new thread to follow, leading the conversation in different natural directions. The trick is knowing which thread to pull. Imagine someone just told you they got back from Japan. Now, you could just nod and say, "Cool," but where's the fun in that? Instead, try this. Lean in a little and say, "That's amazing. What was the best thing you ate?" Because let's be real, food isn't just food, it's an experience. And when people get to talk about something delicious they had, they don't just answer, they relive it. Watch their face light up as they describe the best ramen they've ever had or the sushi that practically melted in their mouth. But what if they're not a foodie? No problem. You shift gears and go for a preference-based question. Were you more about sightseeing or just eating everything in sight? Now, instead of forcing them to come up with an answer, you make it effortless. They just have to pick a lane. And as they do, you get a glimpse of what kind of traveller they are. Still no spark? Time to make it personal. You sigh dramatically and say, "Oh, I'm jealous. I need a vacation. What was the best part of the trip?" Suddenly, you're not just asking, you're relating. By putting yourself in the mix before posing the question, the conversation stops feeling like an interview and starts feeling like 2 friends swapping travel dreams. The key? People don't just respond to words, they respond to emotion. Give them something to latch onto, and the conversation will never feel forced. By following the threads, you give them multiple ways to respond, making the conversation flow more naturally. And if the conversation still feels a bit stuck, there's one simple trick that never fails: curiosity. These 3 words can save any conversation. Tell me more. This keeps the momentum going without you having to overthink what to say next. It works because people like talking about things they care about. So, if someone mentions a project, a hobby, or an experience, instead of scrambling to add your own story, just say, "That's interesting, tell me more," and let them run with it. But even with good conversation techniques, sometimes social settings still feel uncomfortable. That's normal. Here's how to manage that feeling so you don't get stuck in your head. A lot of social anxiety comes from the idea that you need to be impressive or funny or smart. But think about it. Do you actually like talking to people who try too hard? Probably not. Instead, focus on being interested rather than interesting. When you genuinely listen and engage, people will naturally enjoy talking to you without you having to do all the heavy lifting. Think of socializing like watching a live show. You don't need a script, just a willingness to engage. And sometimes the best moments happen when things don't go perfectly, which brings us to the Pratfall Effect. The Pratfall Effect is a psychological principle that says people like you more when you're not perfect. Think about it. Flawless people can feel intimidating. But when someone makes a small mistake, stumbles over a word, or admits they don't know something, they become more relatable. So, if you fumble your words, laugh about it. If you blank on what to say next, own it. Wow, my brain just rebooted mid-sentence. Let me try that again. People will find it charming, not cringeworthy. And just like a good conversation has a natural rhythm, knowing when and how to leave is just as important as knowing how to start, because exiting smoothly keeps the whole interaction feeling effortless. But instead of using the classic, I need to go to the bathroom escape plan, try something that leaves the conversation on a high note. Imagine you're mid-conversation and you know it's time to go. Instead of an abrupt exit, you say, I've got to head out soon, but before I go, I need to hear more about that thing they mentioned earlier. This does two things. It gives them a final moment to share something they're excited about and makes them feel like the conversation was genuinely meaningful. Or maybe you want to introduce them to someone else before leaving. You casually say, oh, you love hiking. You have to meet Jake. He's basically a walking National Geographic documentary. By smoothly handing them off to another person, you keep the energy flowing and ensure they don't feel abandoned. And if you want to make your exit playful, you can always circle back to something from earlier. With a grin, you say, before I leave, I still need to know, was that coffee actually strong or just false advertising? It makes the goodbye feel effortless, like a natural end to a fun interaction. Leaving a conversation isn't about disappearing. It's about wrapping it up in a way that makes people remember you positively. Because when you exit well, people aren't thinking, oh, they left. They're thinking, that was a great conversation. So let's wrap up with some final thoughts. Every interaction, whether short or long, is part of building your confidence. And if you've ever thought, I'm just not good at socializing, remember, nobody is born great at this. It's a skill. And like any skill, you get better with practice. So next time you're standing outside a room, about to overthink yourself into oblivion, take a deep breath, step in, and remember, notice something, say something, follow the thread. Don't stress about being perfect. Worst case, you have a forgettable conversation and move on. Best case, you've just made a new friend. Congratulations! You've officially unlocked the secret to enjoying social situations. No more awkward hovering or pretending to text while you psych yourself up. But let me ask you this. Are you just getting better at conversations, or are you actually designing the life you want? Because seriously, don't be the person who masters socializing but forgets to master their own life. If you're out here making connections but still feeling stuck in the same routine, then you're missing the bigger picture. And that's why I made a whole video on exactly how to take control, make intentional choices, and design a life you actually love. So don't just walk into rooms with confidence, walk into the life you actually want. And click here to check it out. And if this video has given you even a little bit of inspiration, hit the subscribe button and keep growing with Simply Sam.